So, 1059.com.
Hey! I don't know how to put this, but it is Friday. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. I sure am glad you're here. It is a free-for-all Friday here on the show. Need a little juice? Just getting started? Need a little energy? A, yeah, yes, no, maybe? All right, here it goes. Come on! The JSU Sonic Boom starting you off the right way today. Little shot of adrenaline in your ear there. I'm Matt. Beaver's here. It's a free-for-all Friday. Questions, comments, and otherwise, get them on in. Lots of ways for you to be a part of the show, and I hope you will be. You can call, you can text, you can comment on the live stream. You can talk out the side of your neck. Whatever you want to do, go right ahead. Have a cup of hot coffee with me from High Point, and we'll have a good day. I even got a text. The first text today on the show actually came in a couple of minutes before the show. It's not about sports. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about Beaver. So that's coming up. And I'll remind you the numbers. Text me on the Country Pleasing text line, 885-3776. Got it? It's 885-3776. Hold on, I got to pour some more coffee. Listen up. Whew, son, if that won't light your fire, your wood's wet. Welcome in, welcome in. Now we got a little energy. Yeah, all right, so let's check in right away with Beaver. Hey, B.
Hey, Matt Wyatt.
Happy Friday to you, sir.
And to you as well.
So, I got here a text that came in 3 minutes before the show started, and it just simply says, "Is Beaver single?" Now,
I saw that.
Oh, you did read it? You saw it?
Yes, I just saw it.
Okay. Now, Beaver, you are not obligated to talk about your personal life. You don't have to, or any of that stuff. How you want to address this question about you? Are you or are you not single?
It's so interesting because I feel like, you know, when I say yes, it's probably like, yeah, figured so.
No.
But yeah, yes, I am indeed single. Now, I would love to know why that question was asked.
Yeah, see, that's my thing, Beaver. When somebody texts the radio show 3 minutes before it even starts, this is non sequitur. It ain't like it's a part of something that they heard us talking about. I'm just wondering, who are you? Who are you? Who do you know, and why do you want to know? So the answer is, yeah, Beaver's single for now. Apparently, for now. So there you go. It's just like I say, you never know. It's cliche at this point, but I'm referencing Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get on the show on a Friday. All right, text. You can also comment on the live stream, the Murray West live thread over here on YouTube, Facebook. Hey to y'all, if you're tuning in on this Friday, got some comments coming in there. Bobo was the first to comment. He's on YouTube. See, you just type it in, comment, it pops up on my screen, and then I can pop it up on the live screen here, the live thread. He says, howdy in Hale State. Well, back at you, Bobo. Thanks for being a part of the show. Let's see what else we have. Let's see, Country Pleasing text line right off the bat. Dennis, formerly of Omaha, said, hello, Matt in Hale State from Olive Branch, Mississippi. DeSoto County, right there in the heart of DeSoto County. Extra points if y'all can tell me the mascot for Olive Branch High School. They are the Olive Branch what? Extra points if you know what it is, and even more extra points if you can spell it correctly. I'll give you the answer coming up. State Grad 98 on the Country Pleasing text line says the famous Maroon Band needs to be played on this show. All right, so State Grad, why? Okay, so we played the Sonic Boom, the JSU Sonic Boom, the incomparable JSU Sonic Boom. Do y'all know what incomparable means? Of course you do. It means you cannot compare them to anybody or really anything else. And I played the Sonic Boom, and State Grad is a little jealous and wants the famous Maroon Band played on here. Not just the Sonic Boom, right? I mean, come on, listen. This is a marching band in college. Are you serious? Listen. There's nothing like it. Not even close. Woo! Okay, we'll find a spot to work in some famous Maroon Band, okay? All right, so everybody's getting it right. Chief Shooting Bull. What a great name, by the way. Why isn't that a character in a Mel Brooks movie? Look that up, you young'uns. Chief Shooting Bull. So he gets it, Chief Shooting Bull. Brad gets it. Bulldog 44 gets it. No, David, they're not the Commodores. Lee on Facebook, and I think maybe even the first place I saw it was Mississippi Dog on YouTube. They are the Conquistadors. That's exactly right. The Olive Branch Conquistadors. Find me a cooler mascot nickname than that around here, huh? And we got some. The Whippets, just for example. The Conquistadors. And everybody spelled it correctly. If you pronounced it the way that it is spelled, you would be saying Conquistadors. But it is Conquistadors. And they've got the two, swords with the O and the B interwoven as their logo. Oh, yeah, the Tartars. Melissa on Facebook says the Tartars. And let me just tell you, okay, the Taylorsville Tartars. And Melissa, okay, you and your beloved husband, Matt, y'all spent a lot of time there at Taylorsville. Of course, I know he coached there many, many, many years ago, long time ago. And I was just kind of like just getting started around here, doing radio, talking about it, that kind of thing. And I had always heard about Taylorsville and knew of their success and all the athletes and the games that they've won. Of course, Melissa, we had a teammate, John Jennings, tight end at State, who came from Taylorsville. But when I first saw that on something and had to read it, I didn't say the Tartars. I said the Tartars. And not only was it stupid and kind of hilarious at the same time, but it was kind of bad. I mean, you can't make that mistake here in the state of Mississippi, okay? You can't be calling them the Tartar. Yeah, and Lee, you're right. The East Union Urchins is a good one also. You know what? That reminds me of, I didn't plan on talking about this, but it just reminded me. So we mentioned Olive Branch because someone's listening from there. They're the Conquistadors. And remember, a couple of days ago, we were talking to Jim Richmond from C-Spire. And right now you can go to cspire.com/sports, and you can see a lot of information there about the history of C-Spire's 30 years in sports marketing, heavily involved in all areas of sports here in the state of Mississippi and even beyond, and supporting college teams and high school teams and all this stuff, right on through having those Y'all versus Us and Bright Lights broadcasts we did for high school football years ago. We mentioned that, and one of those games was Olive Branch versus South Panola. And in the years that they did the C-Spire Bright Light series of high school football games that were broadcast on Fox Sports South, it was a really cool deal because it was high level of television production for high school football rivalry games in and around Mississippi. Not all in Mississippi, but most of them. And C-Spire brought in an entire television production crew. It was the same truck and equipment and cameras and people and directors and camera. and producers and everything that would load up after that. And they went to New Orleans and did Saints games on those Sundays. I mean, this was top notch. Now, they would bring in a video board and put it up, in these high school stadiums. And part of the other fanfare, they had a trophy that you played for, but they had the fireworks and the fireworks cannons ready to shoot up in the air as the high school teams would run through their banners that the cheerleaders had made and onto the field. The pregame part of it, they brought in fireworks. Jim actually mentioned that in the interview on Wednesday. And there were several things that happened, around that. You weren't used to those things like video boards and fireworks at that time. But anyway, Olive Branch was playing South Panola, and the Olive Branch football team huddled up and lined up and got bunched up behind the banner they were going to run through, the run-through banner to come out on the field, except they didn't have a banner. It was just a thing, these poles and the teams there. Well, they had these fireworks that they're going to shoot when they began to run out. But somehow their signals got crossed, and the team was still standing there waiting to go, and somebody went ahead and shot the fireworks. Now, this wasn't just a whoosh, like bottle rocket sound. These fireworks sounded like cannons going off. Like if you didn't know it was coming, it would rattle the cage. Now, boom, out of nowhere. Well, the kids in the front of the Olive Branch team, it shocked them and jolted them, and one of them lost his balance and started falling backwards. And as he fell, then he knocked 2 or 3 down, and the whole team started falling like dominoes, just front to back. They just all fell on the ground right before they came out. And I'll never forget that loud cannon. It got the guy in the front, and once he fell, dominoes right onto the bat. Whole team laying on the ground having to get up, and the fireworks are going off, and then they ran. The Olive Branch Conquistadors. Back in the day, you go back 10 or so years ago, I mean, there was some knockdown drag-outs between Olive Branch and South Panola, and Olive Branch and several of those teams in that area. Okay, so lots of comments to get to. We're just getting started here. Things like this in today's show. Robert mentions on YouTube that State is a 13.5-point favorite in he says, Rogers Family Bowl game, right? Because you got Will Rogers playing for State, and you got his brother playing for Southern Miss tomorrow, 11 a.m. game in Starkville. Your text message is coming up right now over to the phone line, the Davini Equipment phone line. Davini Equipment in Madison and in Jackson, your Kubota dealer. State Grad 98 on line 1. Thanks for calling. What's up?
Little known fact that I actually tried out for the Sonic Boom of the South.
Yeah.
And got rejected.
Really? Wow.
So every time. Yeah. Apparently, I didn't have enough rhythm. Playing was okay, but the rhythm was not there at all.
Okay.
Wasn't there. So, yes, we need to hear more Sonic Boom. Some more famous Maroon band.
Okay.
Because I was accepted there.
There you go. You asked for it, you got it.
I appreciate it, man. You're a great guy for doing that. Hey, now I have a question for Beaver. Can you bring him back on?
Oh yeah. Hey, Beaver, hop in here. He's got a question for you.
Hey, Beaver.
Hey.
Hey, look, I heard that tomorrow night there's a wrestling pay-per-view. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, who is going to be signed at the pay-per-view?
Oh, it's a mystery. I don't know. They made this big announcement that it's one of the best wrestlers in the world. And you know that wrestling promoters, when they say things like that, why would they ever lie? So it's got to be one of the best ever.
Why would they ever
lie?
I
have a prediction.
Who's that?
What is it? What's your prediction? We lost him.
Oh, are you kidding me?
He hung up.
Yeah.
Hey, State Grad, we lost you for a minute. We lost you when
I'm
you
still
said.
Here.
Okay, tell us what your prediction is.
Will Ospreay. Beaver knows who that is.
Yeah, he's awesome, but I feel like that would be kind of a letdown just because he's He's been there, and
Well, I know, but who else could it be? I mean, that hasn't been there.
Well, this place that we're talking about, AEW, by the way, is what State Grad 98 speaks of. They recently signed Ric Flair, which was a huge letdown for me because I'm apparently one of the only people in the world who doesn't like Ric Flair. So
I don't like Ric Flair.
Oh, excellent. So I'm hoping this is yeah. I'm hoping this is a little bit better.
Okay.
But if you watch, one more thing. If I watched the Will Ospreay match just a while ago from last night, him against the walking weapon Josh Alexander.
Hey.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Matt,
I'm sorry. I fell asleep.
You said anything goes.
I'm sorry. I fell
You
asleep
said
for a second.
anything goes.
Yeah, you did.
Free for all Friday.
I
You open
apologize.
the door.
I totally apologize. I didn't mean to fall asleep. Okay, go ahead. Will Ospreay, what?
And Josh Alexander last night. Go back and watch it, Beaver.
Okay.
It was a clinic. It was on obviously Impact and everything. But anyway, all right, Matt. Well, I appreciate you letting me and Beaver have a little conversation, and I also appreciate you playing the famous Maroon Band.
Yep. Glad to. Appreciate you. Thanks for the call.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
All right, there you go. We'll play him out. Beaver.
Now, dang it, Matt Wyatt. Look.
No, I deserve it. I know.
State Grad 98 wants to call in after you did indeed say anything goes.
I know.
State Grad 98 wants to call in and just have a nice 3-minute wrestling discussion. And you got to start making snoring sounds at this man. I'm sorry that he took time away from the 653rd text about Mississippi State's next head coach this week.
It's so true. It's so true that it's funny. I couldn't help it, though, because honestly, I was uninterested in it. Okay. I realize I'm not one of these people that thinks that it has to interest me for it to be interesting. Okay. I get it. But still, that tickled me. Y'all's reaction to it. You went, hey, now, hey. And then, yeah, I love it when the callers sort of take ownership. Like he wasn't State Grad was not going to be cut off. Did you notice that, Beaver? He goes, hey, one more thing. So, no, that's no problem. Now, Beaver, look, anything does go. Have you seen the follow-up?
I did.
All right. For those that just tuned in, the first text we got today is from an unnamed texter that says, is Beaver single? And the answer to that is yes, he is. And there is a follow-up. About 7 to 8 minutes later, we got a follow-up that said, would he be interested in a blind date? Now, here's what we won't play out the on the air, Beaver. Let's don't play out the are you or aren't you going on a blind date. You might need some time to think about it. Am I right? Maybe think. I don't know. I don't know. But Beaver, have you ever been on a blind date before?
Blind date? No, I don't remember going on a blind date before.
Okay. Are you halfway interested in you intrigued by the idea of a blind date?
Yeah, I'm open.
Okay, so he's open. I've never been on a blind date once in my life. So I wouldn't be someone that you could ask any advice from. But if y'all are out there, if you got any pointers or tips or anything to consider when it comes to blind dates, but to whomever you are, it sounds like there's an opening there. Now, far be it from me and us to even pretend to be matchmaker, but by all means, it's the country pleasing text line, and we can all see it. So we may have something here. This is way getting the cart before the horse, Beaver. But I am saying that years down the line, it would make a really fantastic story if there was this married couple with kids, and they said, "Yeah, we met because through Matt's sports show on the country pleasing text line, we started texting each other."
Well, now I feel like you're taking this 6 steps farther, and this is basically an arranged marriage by the Matt Wyatt Show.
I know. I said cart before the horse, but look, there are people who meet up on a date or whatever based on less information. I mean, they find each other online and never even talked. At least they've heard you talk, Beaver. You may not know this person, but they can very well feel like they know you pretty well because of all the talking they've been able to hear you do.
I suppose.
All right, well, let's see where it goes. The Olive Branch Conquistadors. Yeah, David, you were close. He said Commodores. I mean, I guess. Similar number of syllables. Okay, and look, sports coming up. I got a comment here from Mississippi Dog with a list of 3 potential coaching candidates. And it's an interesting list with an interesting follow-up with a guy that nobody's mentioned. So we'll hit the sports stuff when we come back. I will tell you that Kenny, don't call me Ken, on the Country Pleasing text line, sent us a picture of chicken fried bacon. It is bacon that has been battered like chicken and fried like chicken. We'll get opinions on that too. I would absolutely try it right now. But all that on a free-for-all Friday, just getting started with you in the Bureau, the Farm Bureau Insurance Studio. Stick around. Y'all heard me talk about Murray West and MurrayWest.com. They made the hat that I'm wearing. Got the Natchez Trace logo on it. I've told you a little bit about what they are. Contract embroidery company here in Mississippi. Started back in 1996, family owned. They do a phenomenal job, and I got to go visit their place up in New Albany. Let me show you a little bit about it. I say they do quality stuff. They really do. And so custom apparel, team stuff, I mean, really and truly, just about every high school in the state is sending their embroidered, team gear, jackets, shirts, hats, stuff. Baseball teams, football teams, they're sending it to the folks at Murray West in New Albany. You go to their website, MurrayWest.com, you go to the bottom, you can kind of see some of the Prairie Wildlife, Ole Miss Athletics, Gentile, others that they work with. Can't recommend them enough. If you need your logo printed, embroidered, sewn on to anything, custom apparel and other stuff, make sure you go there. Murray West, you can find them online. MurrayWest.com. That's MURRY West.com.
I'm Eddie Holcomb with Washington County Farm Bureau Insurance.
I'm Scott Rainwater with Farm Bureau Insurance here in Washington County.
I'm Blake Policini with Washington County Farm Bureau.
I'm Brian Street with Farm Bureau Insurance in Washington County, and we are your home team.
I think you know what time it is. It's time to eat. Country pleasing, jalapeno and cheddar, green onion. And no, it's not a grill, see that? But the fire is just about burnt down enough where it's time to put some of this on there. And the only decision when it comes to country pleasing sausage is which flavor, jalapeno and cheddar or maybe green onion. Both.
Break me off a piece of that.
Look at that. You know what that is? That's real green onion. Like that monkey who set his tail on a railroad track. It won't be long now. Country Pleasing sausage, these flavors, and many, many others. Get them online at countrypleasing.com. At a grocery store near you, pretty much anywhere in the Southeast. Walk up in there and say, Country Pleasing, please. They'll know what you're talking about.
I was born and raised in Greenville. I've always called Greenville home. This is where I, was raised, went to high school, graduated high school, worked all my life here leading up to going to college. So even when I moved from Greenville, I always told people, they asked me where you're from, I always said I'm from Greenville. I have mother, father, brother, niece, aunt, all live here in Greenville. So this is home. This is where I, live, and I've just always called it home. Small town, I feel like I could walk in any place tomorrow and know 2 to 3 people in there. It's small town. Someone's on the side of the road broken down. Hey, you need a boost, flat tire, you need help changing it. That's just kind of, what I love about this area, the blues and the food and everything that comes along with the Mississippi Delta that I love. I tell people all the time, my business cards have my cell phone number on them for a reason. Insurance doesn't happen from 8 to 5. When you need me, it's going to be after 5. It hardly ever happens where you
1059 and worldwide at thezone1059.com.
All right, back with you. I'm Matt in the Bureau, the Farm Bureau Insurance Studio. A Football Friday, huge high school matchups. I mean, some of these playoff matchups you have in the MHSAA are really, really intriguing, and looking forward to those. All right, so I got a text here on the Country Pleasing text line on that note. It says, hey, Matt, I've got a high school prediction. Now, this is an unnamed texter. It says, Lawrence County plays Poplarville tonight for the South State Championship. But is that right? So what class is it? The South State Championship would be next week, right? The week of Thanksgiving? Because we're still in what basically is the second round, I believe. So, but regardless, he says Lawrence County plays Poplarville. His prediction is Ahmad Hardy runs for 250 plus with 4 touchdowns. Best running back in the state, in my opinion, he says, and hope he commits to Mississippi State. Great show. Well, thanks for the text. I was looking at this class. So here's the deal. Rematch Madison Central Tupelo. It's at Tupelo. Tupelo is 9-2 in Class 7A. Madison Central 7-4. One of Madison Central's losses is to Tupelo, 14-12. It was a 2-point ball game. Somebody reminded me of that this week. And then Tupelo, since then, has gone on to whip up on some people. They beat the tar out of Starkville the other night at the end of the regular season. Starkville's still alive. They are at Oxford tonight. So Starkville at Oxford, North Half playoffs. Madison Central at Tupelo rematch. Madison Central's been really hot since losing to Tupelo. They've beaten the tar out of several people, except lost badly to Starkville. Then, in a win or go home game, loser leaves town game, playoff football, Pearl at Brandon, huge rivalry. Pearl is 8-3. The game's been played at Brandon, who's 9-2. And then you have Meridian at Oak Grove, and maybe Meridian getting hot here lately with the right wins. They're just 6-6 in the year. Oak Grove 10-1. They were kind of everybody's favorite going into it. Beaver, from the perspective of a Pearlian, somebody from Pearl, that's the best I could do. Pearl at Brandon, playoffs, losers season is over. How big a deal is this? Meridian at Oak Grove. Let's see, Class 6A, you got Neshoba Central at South Panola. The aforementioned South Panola is 10-1. They're still in 6A. Grenada at Warren Central. That's 9-3 at 9-2, respectively. Told you yesterday how Warren Central is coached by the Morgans. Rob and Josh, who played at State. And Grenada is coached by Michael Fair, who played at State with the Morgans. And at one time, I think they were roommates. Now they're coaching against each other. And then South Half, you get Terry at West Jones, Pascagoula at Picayune. 5A playoffs. Lafayette County's at Clarksdale. West Point is at Holmes County. My goodness. Holmes County 12-0. And in there goes West Point with all those playoff wins and everything over the years. That's a huge one in 5A. In the South, Gaucher at Florence. Florence, 8-4. Huge game tonight. Brookhaven at Laurel. You're into the third round of the 4A, which is undefeated Louisville hosting Caledonia. You have Houston hosting West Lauderdale. They're 11-1, 10-1. You have Pass Christian on the coast hosting Columbia, and then Lawrence County hosting Poplarville. We mentioned that one in a text message a minute ago. 3A playoffs tonight. Winona goes to East Webster. Winona's undefeated, 12-0. Amanda Elsie, 7-4, hosting Moorville tonight. Moorville is 9-3. They're from the Tupelo area. Seminary in the South, 8-4, hosting Jefferson County. And then Noxubee County, 8-4. They're hosting Jefferson Davis County. They used to be Bassfield. They are 10-2. Class 2A playoffs tonight in the North. You got Charleston at Hamilton, Union at Calhoun City. And then in the South, you got Collins at Heidelberg and Raleigh at Scott Central. 1A in the North, you got Biggersville at West Lowndes. How about West Lowndes hosting a playoff game? They're 4-7 on the year, hosting a 9-1 Biggersville team. Baldwin's going to host Vardaman. How about that? The Vardaman Rams are 11-0. And then in the South in 1A, you got Simmons 11-0 hosting Taylorsville, the Tartars. And then Velma Jackson 11-0 hosting Resurrection, who's 10-1. So those are your MHSA playoff games for tonight. More text coming your way. I wanted to read this. This is on the Murray West live thread. You need anything embroidered on anything, a logo embroidered on shirts, hats, apparel, custom apparel, whatever it is, wherever you are, doesn't matter where you are, look them up online, get in touch with them. You'll be glad you did. It's Murray West, Murry, murraywest.com. Mississippi Dog. He's listing out candidates for Mississippi State's open spot for head coach. Number 1, Chadwell from Liberty. Number 2, Leipold from Kansas. And number 3, Tom Herman, the former Texas coach who's now at FAU. But then he goes on, he says, but Matt, the winning formula I believe that will work is a Levy hire with Kendall Briles as offensive coordinator and Art Briles as an offensive analyst. And he followed that up and said, if Auburn isn't scared to hire Hugh Freeze, we shouldn't be afraid to get Art, make it a family affair. The only thing about, in the whole Art Briles deal, they're not going to hire him. People aren't going to hire that because they don't feel that they're in a position where they have to and have to deal with whatever blowback you get, right, wrong, or indifferent. So that's not happening. But, the thought of a guy like Levy being the head coach yet hiring an offensive coordinator, I don't know. That's interesting to me because the way I picture someone like Jeff Levy is if he goes and is your head coach, he is your offensive coordinator. It's like a Dan Mullen type of thing, right? He is your coordinator, your quarterback's coach, even though he is the head coach. So, I don't know about that specific scenario that you outlined right there. All right, more on the text line. Let's see. Tony Joe, country pleasing text. Matt, first, please don't get me wrong. I'm an old guy and have loved college football my entire life. As much of what is happening in college football seems ridiculous. Fans are paying a lot of money to attend games. Tailgating, we pay high prices for parking, food, and logos. Now, on top of all that, we're asked to donate more so that they can pay the players and whoever else they choose. He says, question number 1, who has the ultimate say-so on who is paid and how much they are paid? And question number 2, are the amounts being paid public information? I can only imagine the private schools do not disclose it. Well, see, and listen, we've kind of been through some of that before, Tony Joe, and I think you echo the questions and thoughts and questions of a lot of people out there. And yes, you're right in analyzing the situation as being one that you have no choice. You are in a pay-for-play era. Every single big-time football player and big-time basketball player that you're hoping will play for you is being offered money to play somewhere else. I mean, if you just look at it through that lens, which is true, every big-time athlete, whether it's football or basketball, that you want, and maybe in a lot of cases baseball, that you want to play for you, whether he's already on your team or whether you're hoping to get him on your team, you want him to play for you, he's being offered lots of money to play somewhere else. It is a fact. All of them. So, what do you do about it? I mean, you don't have much of a choice, do you? And so, when you're on the outside, you do have a choice of whether to get involved in it or not. But when you're on the inside, and you look at, for example, a place like Mississippi State, I mean, coaching staffs and administration, given the environment, they don't really have a choice. I mean, in order to be competitive, you got to pay your players, and you got to use those. You got to use the cash to get them to come and get them to stay. A lot of times, that's the way it is. So that's a fact. A place like State is really, really. I don't know what they would do without a guy like Charlie Winfield doing what they're doing for him. They don't have a choice. Now, public, because it is not directly coming from, say, an athletics department budget, a line item on their budget, this is outside third party. That's what collectives are by definition. And then by osmosis, they probably work in conjunction with the wants and needs of an athletics department, but it is technically third party. So I don't know that there is anything to force them to be completely out in the open about every dollar and cent, where it is spent, and how much is getting, who's getting how much month to month. They will publicize and advertise when there's a big deal, like a big money deal for one of the players or something, because it helps get the attention of future players, right? It's a selling point thing. But as far as making it public, I just don't think so. And in terms of who has the ultimate say-so, my understanding is all across the country, it really is the third-party collectives are sort of operating at the behest and bequest of what coaches of the various teams are telling them their needs are. That's the way I understand it. Now, that may make the hair raise up on the back of a lot of people's necks out there, especially those who are keeping up certain appearances to satisfy the idea of an NCAA rule, but I mean, still it doesn't change reality. Y'all stick around.
I was born and raised in Greenville. I've always called Greenville home. This is where I, was raised, went to high school, graduated high school, worked all my life here leading up to going to college. So even when I moved from Greenville, I always told people, they asked me where you're from, I always said I'm from Greenville. I have mother, father, brother, niece, aunt, all live here in Greenville. So this is home. This is where I, live, and I've just always called it home. Small town, I feel like I could walk in any place tomorrow and know 2 to 3 people in there. It's small town. Someone's on the side of the road broken down. Hey, you need a boost, flat tire, you need help changing it. That's just kind of, what I love about this area, the blues and the food and everything that comes along with the Mississippi Delta that I love. I tell people all the time, my business cards have my cell phone number on them for a reason. Insurance doesn't happen from 8 to 5. When you need me, it's going to be after 5. It hardly ever happens where you have a wreck, get pulled over, need an insurance card, wind blows, shingles off your roof. All these things happen, and it's typically after 5. And so the ability for someone to call me, get in contact with me, text me, ask me a question, and that's what it's about to me, is helping the people that we serve, is taking care of people, and them knowing that they can count on me whenever they need me. I am Brian Street with Farm Bureau Insurance in Washington County, and we are your home team.
Y'all have heard me talk about Murray West and murraywest.com. They made the hat that I'm wearing. Got the Natchez Trace logo on it. I've told you a little bit about what they are. Contract embroidery company here in Mississippi. Started back in 1996, family owned. They do a phenomenal job, and I got to go visit their place up in New Albany. Let me show you a little bit about it. I say they do quality stuff. They really do. And so custom apparel, team stuff, I mean, really and truly, just about every high school in the state is sending their embroidered, team gear, jackets, shirts, hats, stuff. Baseball teams, football teams, they're sending it to the folks at Murray West in New Albany. You go to their website, murraywest.com, you go to the bottom, you can kind of see some of the Prairie Wildlife, Ole Miss Athletics, Gentile, others that they work with. Can't recommend them enough. If you need your logo printed, embroidered, sewn on to anything, custom apparel and other stuff, make sure you go there. Murray West, you can find them. Yeah, I told y'all about how we heard that same commercial, the Smokey the Bear. If you were listening on the radio, and not on the live stream, but on the radio, you heard the Smokey the Bear. Only you can prevent wildfires. And we were in the car one day, and Mary Liddy was like reading something over there, and she wasn't really paying attention halfway to what we were listening to, and you heard that. And she goes, wait, what did he say? Only who can paint wildflowers? Had a good laugh at that one. Back with you here in the Bureau, the Farm Bureau Insurance Studio on this Friday. Let's get going here on the Country Pleasing text line. Gabe says, it sounded like a kumbaya moment we were having when State Grad and Beaver were talking wrestling. Turd Ferguson texts the show and says, I thought Beaver and I were two of a kind with all of our musical takes, but this Ric Flair hatred is disappointing. Scott from Philadelphia, just simply said to Beaver, woo! That's all I got. I can't do a Ric Flair. You get the point. Jason in Flagstaff said, in my very limited experience, blind dates generally require bear repellent. Come on now. Come on, Jason. What kind of friends you got? We had somebody earlier ask if Beaver was interested in a blind date. Old School Ed texted the show and said, I'd like to know what you think about Tom Herman. Well, yeah, I would say, it's obvious that he's been able to put some really good football teams together. He did it at Houston. In terms of how good they were or weren't at Texas, I didn't pay all that close attention to them at Texas. Kind of lost track of him there. I know he's doing a good job at Florida Atlantic. I think he's a good coach, and knows what he's doing, has had the background. He was around the Urban Meyer, Florida State stuff and all that. So I think he's a good coach. And I think that, I said this earlier in the week, I'll stick with it. I think there's a lot of guys out there who, when they are young, they mess up in certain ways and they pull certain stunts and they do things that they probably wish they hadn't. And then they get older and they start to mature. And later, after they start to mature a little more, the people they work for are fortunate that they got them at that point in their life as opposed to earlier. I mean, Lane Kiffin is a good example of that. You could argue. You look at him now, and it even felt that way from the opening press conference on when he went to Ole Miss. It looked like, okay, here's a guy who's kind of grown up, and Ole Miss is getting Lane Kiffin at the right time of his life. You didn't want to be Tennessee that hired him all those years ago. You didn't want to be the Raiders who hired him late 20s, early 30s, or whatever it was. But you do want to be the Ole Miss that hires him now, 40s, pushing 50, whatever it is. And maybe the same's true for Herman. I can't get that image out of my head of how silly and just, I don't know, like he just sort of lost his mind the way he was acting at Texas in that bowl game against Missouri when Drew Lock was the Missouri quarterback and he had this celebration that he would do, and then Texas started beating him, and then there's Tom Herman over the head coach who's mocking the other team's quarterback doing this, whatever the celebration was. And I can't get that image out of my head. And I thought, if you got a guy who's matured and can leave all that kind of mess in the past, then maybe you could have something. Seems to be doing a good job, though. Seems to know how to coach. State Grad 98 texts the show. Let's see, I don't know what that's about. Joe Mailman. He says, Beaver, notice how when you confronted Matt about a prearranged setup, he changed the subject and started talking about conquistadors again. I had nothing to do with it, though. Okay, it may have come across that way, promise you. I didn't have anything to do with any of it. Don't know who that was that texted asking about Beaver being single and blind dates. I have no earthly idea. So maybe it looked that way. I wasn't intentionally changing the subject. I was just obeying the attention deficit disorder. Beth Moen's offspring, that's one of our texters here on the text line, says, why won't Tennessee beat Georgia? Georgia's bigger, faster, better, deeper. That's why. Tiger David texts the show and says, as a Christian, I believe in forgiveness, so why can Art Briles not be forgiven and get another shot? No, he can. I mean, or Tiger David, if we're saying should, yeah, he should. I'm saying will he? No, you're talking about, this isn't, person to person, in my heart and soul forgiveness of you or you forgiveness of me. That is different. Then it comes down to getting second chances and all that kind of stuff. And what I was saying is, if you take like an SEC school, like State, no, State's not Alabama, but still you're one of 13 football schools in the SEC. Well, you've got no shortage of options that are really qualified, that are certainly as good an option as any other. And so there's certain baggage and things that might come along with some people that even if you feel like, they're way past it, they're just not going to bring that in the building to have to answer those questions. And that's one of those consequences of things that follow you around sometimes. That's all I'm saying. So I think it's less of a forgiveness thing, and it's more of they just got so many options, it's not something that they have to deal with. Honestly. Brad texts the show and says, do you think football donations and ticket prices will increase over time with Texas and Oklahoma joining the league? Will ticket prices increase? Maybe. Yeah. They seem to be like on a trend of just steadily increasing over the time. Donations. I'm just curious I really am. I'm genuinely curious based on everything I've read, if we're going to look up in even 3-4 years from now and still be in the same environment we're in, which is NIL pay the players that way. I'm not so sure we will be. All it takes is that House versus NCAA stuff to start dropping a certain way, and you're going to look up and they're all going to be employees of the university getting W-2s and paying taxes. All right, over to the phone line, Divini Equipment phone line. Dog Tired in Florence on line 1. Dog Tired, how you doing?
What's going on? I'm fine. How are you, boss?
I'm doing great. It was good to see you a couple of weeks ago.
Good. Yeah, man, that was a good steak, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Aaron brought that out already sliced up on that little thing there, the little wooden tray thing there at Country Pleasing, Country Meat Packers. And I just grabbed a piece of it and ate it real quick. And then I kind of did a double take and was like, this may be some of the best steak I've ever had. It was that good.
That's right.
What you got?
About Tom Herman, did it come out that he was actually also, I know he was, but kind of hazing his own team by people that didn't perform in practice, or underclassmen or whatever would get second-tier food, bologna sandwiches, and
really?
Whatever, and the starters would get steaks and other things that we do not need that this day and age.
No, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Technique that you just described is a very old school approach, right? Like when you were playing years ago, when I was playing, some of those old school guys, that's something they would do. Nowadays, especially at a big time program, you're right, Dog Tired. Everything they do is really about selling the program to future players, and so that's interesting. I hadn't read that.
I was just kind of weigh in to see if I know that I didn't know if you guys had heard that there was more than one reason he got asked to leave Texas, and that was one of them. But anyway,
gotcha.
You guys have a good day. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. See you. Appreciate the phone call. Dog Tired in Florence. And Florence, big game tonight. What are they? The Eagles? Aren't they the Florence Eagles? In a big game tonight. Playoff game. They've been playing well. Doggone text the show, says, Matt, let's be honest. It would be so easy to funnel athletics department funds to a collective. You would just need some willing donors to put their names to the funding. I'm sure that there's all kinds of different things that people come up with, I'm sure. Somebody texts, an unnamed texter says, did you talk about Gus Malzahn and your thoughts? Yeah, we haven't really talked about him much. I haven't talked about him much on this show. I don't know. One thing about Coach Malzahn is, like, does he know how to put it together periodically? Sure he does. Does he know how to put a competitive offense on the field? Sure he does, and recruit certain elements to it. I never did view Coach Malzahn offensively as someone who really developed a lot of quarterbacks or really ever had a very consistently strong passing game. And no, I do not believe in completely ignoring the run game. It's a part of this balance everybody's looking for, sure. But I am 100% convinced that in today's game, the way that you must build a program to win and to recruit and to, have support is you have to do two things. You got to play defense. You got to throw the ball. Play defense and throw the ball. And so I think the reason for me personally, I hadn't talked that much about Malzahn is just, I think State's a little different. I think State's program's got to have somebody that can come in there and develop quarterbacks and get to the point where they're throwing the ball consistently well. That's just what I think. All right, hour one's in the books. That went by fast. Hour two coming up right after this in the Bureau. Stick around.
Today's game from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Time was their breakfasts were gloomy. They just didn't feel right, and they didn't know a delicious cereal could help their sad plight. So they tried this and tried that, but irregularity kept coming back all the same. For as often the case, lack of bulk in their diet was actually to blame. Once at the grocer's, the wife was so drooping and sagging that a neighbor said, "Get on Kellogg's All-Bran wagon. Why, All-Bran has a flavor that's scrumptious to eat. So rich and nut-like, makes breakfast a treat. And of course, Kellogg's All Bran can help you each day to youthful regularity, the dietary way. Well, it might do some good, said the wife with a sigh. Guess I'll get some All Bran and give it a try. Soon, breakfasts at her house were happy and bright, for delicious Kellogg's All Bran set their day off right. Yes, All Bran supplies all the bulk in your diet, you see, that you may need for youthful regularity. And no half-bran cereal possibly can provide this help as surely as Kellogg's All Bran, a delicious, non-habit-forming aid to your diet. You're sure to like All Bran. Just buy it and try it.
Get on the Kellogg's All Bran wagon with the best bran in the land. The cereal that tastes bran, the cereal that's all bran, a breakfast treat that can't be beat. Be a regular guy and climb aboard the All Bran wagon. Eat Kellogg's All Bran.
What is the secret of this enchanted book? What wonders are hidden within its pages? What magical spell does it cast on all who read it? What is the secret of the never-ending story?
But that's impossible!
You will enter a world where a young boy's imagination becomes a vivid reality. The world of Atreyu and Artax, the Rockbiter, and a good and kind gnome. A world that is vast and eternal, treacherous and dazzling, unforgettable and free. Yeah! For anyone who's ever made a wish, believed in a fantasy, or had a dream, this is the never-ending story.
It's a what?
It's a swing wing. It's a wing wing. A brand new transit grand fun thing.
It's a what?
It's a swing wing. A fun thing. And now it's your favorite store thing.
It's a what?
Mazda announces some great news for truck buyers. Right now, you can beat the already outstanding value of the $67.95 Mazda SE5. Introducing Mazda SE5 Plus 5. $625 worth of extra features at no extra charge from Mazda. You get a bed liner, mud guards, sliding rear window, floor mats, and AM/FM stereo. That's a $625 value at no extra charge. But hurry, offer ends soon.
Have you ever wished for one product that would clean and shine almost everything in your house? Here it is, Clean and Shine. Like magic, Clean and Shine leaves a nice shine on fine wood furniture, so you don't need furniture polish. It cleans and shines mirrors, so you don't need glass cleaner for mirrors. It cleans and shines refrigerators, like this kitchen product. Even countertops, tile, and vinyl. Try new Clean and Shine, the foam that cleans and shines almost everything in your house.
Someday when people look at me, they'll say, there goes Roy Hobbs, the best there ever was.
TriStar Pictures presents Robert Redford in The Natural, the story of a father and a son.
You got a gift, Roy, but it's not enough.
Of love.
He means the world to me.
And desire.
I'm not waiting for true love to come along, Roy.
A champion.
Roy Hobbs comes along once, maybe twice in everybody's lifetime.
And his destiny.
With or without the records, they'll remember you.
Best there is now, and best there ever will be.
I wouldn't bet against me.
I already have.
Robert Redford, Robert Duvall, Glenn Close, Kim Basinger, Wilford Brimley, Barbara Hershey, Robert Prosky,
worldwide.
Now, here we go.
At thezone1059.com.
Man, I just got to tell you, this has been a fun week of radio shows here with you and live streams along with the radio show this week. Hour 2 of the show on this Friday. We got 1 hour left together, but it's 1 hour left in a week that, for me, has just been a lot of fun. So many text messages and comments on the Murray West live thread and phone calls and interaction and everything else. And, you know, I know we're coming out of a week last week where, you know, like State had gotten whipped and even Ole Miss got whipped and State fired a coach and it's like this haze over. But the listeners and the group of people that we all kind of talk to each other and interact on this show, it has actually been fantastic this week. It's been a lot of fun. I just appreciate y'all, genuinely. Phone calls and everything else, and we'll get into some of that. So as we start hour 2, we'll take some time this hour also to kind of take a look at games and just kind of get geared up for the weekend. The national schedule is actually better than the SEC schedule this weekend. Aaron comments on the Murray West live thread. Go to murraywest.com. Contract embroidery company here in Mississippi. If you need your logo embroidered on anything, big order, small, custom apparel, whatever, contract embroidery right here in Mississippi going all the way back to 1996. They know how to do it. You need your logo on anything, stuff for your team, your brand, your business. Check them out, murraywest.com. Aaron says, I don't know why people are bringing up Tom Herman. He hasn't done much since he was at Houston almost a decade ago. Sammy commented also on Facebook and says, the more I think about Dan Mullen, would get to 7 to 8 win season with occasional 10-win season. No more failed experiments for a while at the new logo State. Look, you know, Dan's name has come up a good bit. I had someone call me yesterday who I really think the world of, who had kind of been hearing Coach Mullen's name get kicked around, you know. And look, Dan just, it's kind of a comfortable thing. And I wouldn't dare say fallback because you don't know. I don't know if there's any interest on his part to get back into coaching right now or not. But yeah, I mean, for sure, he's somebody who he has always found some way to figure something out. He's just always been able to figure something out. And at the end of the Florida deal, it was kind of bad or whatever. But they didn't have any 2-3 win years bad there. Now, I know that's a pretty low bar, and it is Florida we're talking about, but look what everybody else has done at Florida. You know, it's like there's just never been another Spurrier ever since then. You know, McElwain had a couple of years. He got him to the SEC title game just to get drilled by Alabama over and over again in a down Eastern Division before Kirby got things going at Georgia. They fired him. You know, Muschamp, nah. And I know Mullen got him to an SEC title game. Scored a bunch of points, just didn't score enough. Had a couple of first-round draft picks even. And a quarterback that out of nowhere, like a former walk-on, he develops him into an NFL draft pick. That happened at Florida. And even though it wasn't the best situation there, and kind of fell apart on him at the end of it, and they fired him. But how's the next guy done at Florida? I got news for you. He's struggling too. Florida is kind of like the college version of the NFL's New York Giants. At one time, they were the cream of the crop. But since then, they are not. But we all still look at that uniform. One's blue and red, and the other one's blue and orange. But we still look at that uniform, and we think, oh, boy, they ought to. We need to just stop right there. Because it could be for both of those places that what they were 20 years ago ain't ever coming back. That could be the case. I know this. For the Giants, everybody since Tom Coughlin has struggled. And I know that for the Florida Gators, everybody since Steve Spurrier has struggled at Florida. Maybe Florida just ain't that great of a place. It's rhetorical. Well, not rhetorical. It's merely a talking point. That's all that is. I didn't throw out an opinion. I said maybe, as in like a question. Let's see what Gator Matt thinks about that on the perfect timing, by the way, on the Davini Equipment phone line. Davini Equipment in Madison and in Jackson, your Kubota dealer. They are the oldest Kubota dealer in the U.S., in fact. It means they've been doing it better, longer than anyone else right here at home at Davini. Gator Matt on line 1. What's up, Matt?
You just want me to bring my dog over? You just step on him the 6th time? I mean,
I'm really sorry.
New York Giant?
I'm really sorry. Well, you can see the comparison.
I don't see it at all.
Well, let me explain it. Let me explain it. Hold on, let me explain it. So, yeah, turn your radio down, Matt. 20 years ago, they had Eli Manning, and they won some Super Bowls, right? And then since then, and frankly, getting close to 20 years ago, well, I say getting close. It wasn't quite 20 years ago. You had Tim Tebow. And since then, you see what I'm saying? You can see that parallel at least. Matt, you there? I think we turned him down because of his radio. You were hanging a while, Matt, so call me back. If we lost you, call me back. Meanwhile, on the Country Pleasin' text line, Country Pleasin' sausage, I just ate the last little bit of that package of jalapeno and cheddar, so I need to thaw something else out. Olivier texts the show, and he says, to win a football game, you must do 2 things, block and tackle. If you don't do those 2 things, you don't win. It's that simple. Signed, Go Saints. Now, Patches O'Houlihan with a very interesting note on Gus Malzahn. And then right after this, I'm going to read you a note text to me by my father, my dad, Joe Wyatt, who's listening to the show online down in Dothan, Alabama. Patches says Malzahn is not leaving UCF. He has a legitimate path to win a conference title in the Big 12 now that Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC. I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying, just in terms of, and I thought about it too. Like somebody asked a bit ago, have you talked about Malzahn? Well, not really, but the first day, I guess this was maybe Monday, whenever it was, Monday, when they fired Arnett. Pretty soon somebody mentioned Malzahn, but I just sort of poured water on it because I said, why would he leave there? You're in the Big 12, and now that conference has got a seat at the college football expanded playoff table. Very nice little cozy seat waiting on them for their conference champion, unless they change the bylaws, which I don't think they're going to do that initially. The things that they just wrote. But anyway, the Big 12 is going to have one in there in the playoffs, certainly. And you're in a conference with a seat at the table that no longer has to deal with Texas and Oklahoma. And look, UCF's a really big school with a huge number of grads and a big enrollment, and they got resources and all that kind of stuff. And none of it looks like a fit. And I think, Patches, you're exactly right. Some of those reasons you bring up are probably legit. Now, I got a text on my iPhone 12 Pro Max from CSpire. Go to cspire.com/sports. And check out what they put out this week. 30 years in sports marketing, primarily here in the state of Mississippi. It's a really neat video and some other stuff there. You can even see video of the first phone call that was ever made at CSpire back when it was Cellular South. And it was when they were still doing landline stuff. And the first call was Archie Manning picking up the phone and calling somebody. It was pretty cool. You can see all that at cspire.com/sports. So my dad texted me. He said, if you look at the quarterbacks Malzahn had at Auburn, almost all of them were transfers. He only played 1 or 2 in all those years that he recruited. Actually, the Johnson kid from Montgomery is the only one I can think of. Remember Jeremy Johnson? Big old guy. He says that right there spells a big no. And that is true now. That is true. So you think about it. He was a coordinator when they got Cam transfer. Then he came back as the head coach after 1 year at Arkansas State, something like that. They fired Chizik and they bring Malzahn in. So now we're looking at 2013? Was 13 his first year back? And he had Nick Marshall, who was a transfer from Georgia. and they were not a throwing offense, but they could throw it. They just weren't throwing. They were running offense. So Nick Marshall, Jeremy Johnson, high school kid, it didn't work out. Then he had the kid that transferred in from Baylor, Stidham, and didn't really ever quite 100% materialize, right? And then there towards the end, he had Bo Nix at one point for 1 year or whatever. And bless his heart, man. I mean, Auburn even had, some NFL players on its offensive line, but Bo Nix ran for his life for like 3 years trying to play football at Auburn. They couldn't consistently block anybody or anything. And then he goes to Oregon. He's got a good team around him and a well-coached offensive line in front of him, and he's fixed to win the Heisman up there. How about that? Aaron commented, he says, Malzahn's name of not hating, he has beaten Alabama on a regular basis. His teams always compete with the best. They had a lot of ups and downs, I think, if you look at it, too. They're very up and down during that time. But, yeah, I mean, he's an experienced head coach. He's even had a little success at UCF. So, there's some truth there. Jason out in Flagstaff, Arizona. Jason says, by the way, I sat down and looked at Jamie Chadwell's offense, and I nearly cried with what he's doing with the old triple option concepts. Throwing the ball all over the place out of flex bone type formations is absolutely beautiful for what it's worth. Jason, the one thing I have not done since all of this coaching search stuff happened was gone and watched schemes under these proposed coaches, and him being one of them. I need to do that. You've now gotten my attention. Throwing the ball all over the place out of flex bone formations. I need to go see that if that's what he's doing at Liberty. All right, Pearl versus Brandon tonight. High school playoffs. A loser leaves town match. Jonathan texts the show and says he grew up a Pirate with Beaver, but he's raising his kids as Hawks. Hartfield Academy goes to MC to try to wrap up a perfect season on Saturday. The only thing standing in their way is Jackson Prep. Want to give a big go Hawks to those listening to your show around Lakeland Drive. Well, hats off to Hartfield. What a roller coaster they've been through this year too. They knew they were going to have a good team, right? But then early in the year, they had the ruling that they were not going to be eligible for the playoffs, and they were going to suspend 2 coaches because of illegal recruiting practices and that sort of thing. And you had to go, if I'm remembering the timeline right, Jonathan, you had to go start the season that way. And we talked about it. There's all kinds of penalties that you could hand down to avoid telling some high school seniors, hey, you don't get any playoffs. I mean, because they get one shot at it. Surely there's something else you can do other than limiting what. It's not like the high school seniors, the kids are the ones who did this stuff and need to be punished by not being in the playoffs. It was a touch and go conversation. But then they came back, overturned it, and said, no, they indeed are eligible for the playoffs. After they'd already started their season, were playing well, they are sitting there undefeated and going to try to stay that way, have an undefeated season, win a state championship. And they got an excellent chance to do that. So thanks for bringing that up. Tiger David, this is interesting. He says, would you say Zach Arnett is a great SEC defensive coordinator? Yeah. Tiger David, I'm going to tell you, I felt like the job he did as the DC for Mike Leach, particularly in 2020, when you go back and watch that, their first year at state, COVID year, they had some games, they dressed out about 45 guys, less than an NFL roster. And what they were getting done and what they were getting out of those guys. The players they developed, like Buki Watson, Jet Johnson, some of that. Cam Young on the defensive front. What they got out of guys like Charlton and some others. And just on top of, I got to see it for 3 years, sort of they had a real knack for when to take the risk and bring the pressure it led to a lot of hits on quarterbacks. And I do. I think I said this. I thought I did. I can't remember now. There will be no shortage of interest all over the country in Zach Arnett as a defensive coordinator. There will be no shortage of interest. I don't have any idea what buyout and stuff information was on his deal, but I get the impression from Zach is he just wants to coach football. Like Louvier said, he just wants to coach blocking and tackling every day. That's really just what he wants to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I admire it, in fact. Let me tell you, it will not surprise me one bit to tomorrow hear that Zach Arnett's going to be the defensive coordinator at USC for Lincoln Riley, or at LSU for Brian Kelly, or at Alabama someday for Nick Saban. He's that level of a defensive coordinator. There is no question about it. To me, somebody else may feel different, but there is no question about it to me. What do y'all think? All right, over here on the live thread, the Murray West live thread, Will Grace gave us a happy Friday. What's up, Will? Tony, that is kind of funny. Tony said that he heard an Auburn alum refer to Gene Chizik as Coach Consonant. Boy, he got too many consonants in his name. Chizik. People are funny, man. People are funny. All right, so your schedule this weekend, here's what I said, is that the national sort of schedule is better than the SEC schedule. Here's what I meant by that. It's the week before the week for the SEC. It's the week before the rivalry weekend, so a lot of people have scheduled non-conference games. You have Alabama hosting Chattanooga tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. It's ESPN Plus only, so it's online only. No linear television for the Alabama-Chattanooga game. Ole Miss is hosting Louisiana Monroe tomorrow morning at 11. That's on the SEC Network. Monroe's just 2-8. So Ole Miss ought to be getting to this depth pretty quick. And honestly, that's one of those kind of games where if you're an Ole Miss fan, you're just hoping you come out of it healthy. State is hosting Southern Miss. That's 11 a.m. And it also is ESPN Plus online only. There's no linear television, but you can get it on ESPN Plus. State, a couple touchdown favorite. It says a lot about what State's going through. That is a 3-7 Southern Miss team from the Sun Belt. But State's just been so poor on offense here in recent weeks that you can look at it and go, look, all they got to have is kind of a bad day on offense. And Southern Miss, absolutely, they could win that game 7-6. I mean, so State's got to bring it, play better. You really, the biggest game of interest, but it is one of the bigger games of interest around the country, is 2:30 CBS. It's Georgia at Tennessee. Georgia 10-point favorite. They're 10-0. They just absolutely, I mean, gosh, I hate to use a term that goes a little too far. Almost. Well, anyway, you get the point. They just absolutely tore apart Ole Miss last week. Embarrassed them. You know, Ole Miss is a very good football team. They are very good. They will score a lot of points on everybody on their schedule except two teams, and that's Alabama and Georgia. And if they played those two teams 10 times, it'd be the same every time. That's how far out there some of these other teams have their rosters in terms of lines of scrimmage, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, speed at linebacker, safety play. It's ridiculous what Alabama and Georgia can trot out there. And Ole Miss found that out. I mean, congrats on spending all that money and put you a team together. Go shoot your shot and build your fan base and have fun. That's college football. But I got news for you. You're hunting about fourth place. New Mexico State is at Auburn. That's a 3 o'clock game. Tomorrow night on ESPN, you get Florida at Missouri. Gators trying to pull an upset. They are 5-5. Missouri's a pretty good football team, 8-2. They got them ranked in the top 10. 6:30 ESPNU. It's Arkansas hosting Florida International. 6:30 on the SEC Network. South Carolina hosts Kentucky, 2 unranked. Kentucky is 6-4. South Carolina 4-6. It might be an interesting game. It just might be. You get 7 o'clock tomorrow night on ESPN2. LSU will host Georgia State. And again, all right, so again, tell me all about how college football is better than the NFL, but next to last week of the season, and LSU is a 32-point favorite in a home game. Texas A&M interim coach themselves, they're also at 11 a.m. tomorrow. They're hosting Abilene Christian. Shout out. Who sang that song, Abilene? Prettiest town I've ever seen. People did covers of that. I think George Strait did a cover of that, but then the original was somebody else. I can't think of his name. Let's look at the top 25. Let's look at the top 25 and see if it is true what I said. The national schedule is better than the SEC one. I don't know. Let's see. You get 11 a.m. on Fox. It's third-ranked Michigan at Maryland. They're not going to have Harbaugh. I saw somebody post something really funny, a buddy of mine on Facebook the other day, and says, hey, my cat just coughed up a Harbaugh. 11 a.m. on ABC, Louisville at Miami. 11 a.m. Rutgers goes to Penn State. 11 a.m. Oklahoma at BYU. 11 a.m. Tulane at FAU. Here you go, top 25 matchup at 1:30 on the Pac-12 Network. Utah at Arizona. Iowa hosting Illinois. Notre Dame hosts Wake Forest. North Carolina at Clemson. Ohio State, Minnesota. Oregon goes to Arizona State. Oklahoma is at Houston. Washington and Oregon State, 6:30 ABC, number 5 versus number 11. And then Texas visits Iowa State. It ain't much better. Not one of the better weekends games that we've seen, but hey, next week will be awesome. All right, more with you when we come back. I'm Matt. Stick around.
I'm Eddie Hoffman with Washington County Farm Bureau Insurance. I'm Scott Rainwater with Farm Bureau Insurance here in Washington County.
I'm Blake Policini with Washington County Farm Bureau.
I'm Brian Street with Farm Bureau Insurance in Washington County, and we are your home team.
I think you know what time it is. It's time to eat. Country pleasing, jalapeno and cheddar, green onion. And no, it's not a grill, see that? But the fire is just about burnt down enough where it's time to put some of this on there. And the only decision when it comes to country pleasing sausage is which flavor, jalapeno and cheddar or maybe green onion. Both.
Break me off a piece of that.
Look at that. You know what that is? That's real green onion. Like that monkey who set his tail on a railroad track. It won't be long now. Country Pleasing sausage, these flavors, and many, many others. Get them online at countrypleasing.com. At a grocery store near you, pretty much anywhere in the Southeast. Walk up in there and say, Country Pleasing, please. They'll know what you're talking about.
Grew up on a family farm out past Leland, just born and raised here in the Mississippi Delta. Never really thought about moving out. You know, it's where my roots are. Our family's a big sports family. It was 4 boys and 1 girl, and all 4 of us boys went and played ball at Delta Community College. My dad, he's always been honestly a role model of mine. He's farmed his whole life. We attend St. James Catholic Church in Leland, where we went to church my whole life, and then now continuing my family, me and my wife and my 3 kids. Being a Christian is everything for me and my family. Being born and raised here in this area, there's just something about this area. I mean, when you pull into it, you don't see a whole lot, but being born and raised here and the farm families and just the people that grew up here, the people that you see here, you see in the grocery store, you go to church with, small town community, you're gonna run into people that you know. It puts a smile on your face knowing that you know the people in your area, in your community. Get to know them as friends and now bring them in to my office here and creating that relationship, extending it on, getting them as insureds, as customers of mine, who I call friend. I'm Blake Policini with Washington County Farm Bureau, and we are the home team.
Y'all have heard me talk about Murray West and murraywest.com. They made the hat that I'm wearing. Got the Natchez Trace logo on it. I've told you a little bit about what they are. Contract embroidery company here in Mississippi. Started back in 1996, family owned. They do a phenomenal job, and I got to go visit their place up in New Albany. Let me show you a little bit about it. I say they do quality stuff. They really do. And so custom apparel, team stuff, I mean, really and truly, just about every high school in the state is sending their embroidered, team gear, jackets, shirts, hats, stuff. Baseball teams, football teams, they're sending it to the folks at Murray West in New Albany. You go to their website, murraywest.com, you go to the bottom, you can kind of see some of the Prairie Wildlife, Ole Miss Athletics, Gentile, others that they work with. Can't recommend them enough.
Here we go. Back with you. I'm Matt. In the Bureau, the Farm Bureau Insurance Studio, staying connected to you because of C Spire. Keith said on Facebook, on the Murray West live thread, do you know if the salary of community colleges like East Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Northwest compare to assistant coaches at colleges like Ole Miss and Mississippi State? I mean, in general, no, they don't compare. Like, if you were to go, okay, someone who is a head coach, well, let's just look at it this way. I would say that I imagine someone's a head coach, some of the more highly paid head coaches at JUCOs around Mississippi could go to one of these major college programs in the SEC and be honestly like a position coach and make a lot more money as a position coach on an SEC squad versus what you're getting paid to be the head coach at a community college. Now, the community colleges, they're in the state retirement system, just like high schools and the major colleges, and that's one of the bigger, advantages too. But no, they don't have those kinds of budgets. Putting big round numbers on it, I don't know, but certainly position for position, right? Like if what you're asking, Keith, is an offensive coordinator at a JUCO versus an offensive coordinator at State or Ole Miss, they're in two different universes in terms of what those jobs pay. Back over to the text line too. Jason in Flagstaff, who brought this up earlier, he said he watched Jamie Chadwell's offense at Liberty, and that he said it was very unique, triple option concepts, throwing the ball all over the place out of flex bone. He said it's not true flex bone, but it's very similar. Several teams, they squished up a bunch of wingback type guys on either side of the line, and they throw all over the place out of it, run an option here and there. It's crazy looking, but right down the field. Well, how about that? That is interesting to think about. In a place like State, too, one thing you can definitely always recruit at State is a lot of skill players who can really run. A lot of skill guys who can fly. So, maybe it would be a fit. I don't know. I need to go watch it, though. You got my interest piqued on that. Over to the phone line, Davini Equipment phone line. Jimmy on line 1. What's up, Jimmy? Thanks for calling.
Hey, Matt. I'm really excited about tomorrow's game. Do you know I'll be traveling to another football game, but do you know how to catch it or what TV channel it'll be on?
All right, which ones?
If it's
which
on
game?
ESPN. Mississippi State and Southern.
Yeah, it's
Southern Miss.
It's online. It's on ESPN Plus / SEC Network Plus. So it's a deal where you have to go, stream it basically on your smart TV or whatever.
Okay. Matt, I was calling you back today, I'm still on this coaching thing. Who's going to be coaching Mississippi State on the sidelines tomorrow? And I guess the final game against Ole Miss. And has there been any other progress made on narrowing down candidates to be the new coach at Mississippi State University?
Yeah, Jimmy, tomorrow, Greg Knox will act as your head coach on the sideline. And so that really doesn't change anything else for the rest of the staff because the offensive coordinator, Kevin Barbay, is in the booth, like our radio booth, and then they're in the room right next door. And he's been coaching from upstairs after the first game or two. Same guys will be upstairs. Matt Brock and some of those guys and, will be McBath, and those guys will be downstairs and on the sideline. So really the only thing that changes in terms of the makeup is that Knox will wear the headset that Arnett's been wearing and be in that position. Everybody else will be in the same spots, so nothing really has to move in that regard. And, yeah, I don't think you could definitively say there's been noticeable progress made towards them hiring a head coach, other than you just know that it's a constant thing of trying to set up meetings with potential candidates that you think you want to interview for this job so that you can begin to narrow it down. And I would even venture to guess, Jimmy, that some of that was probably even going on leading up to and slightly before the official announcement of letting Coach Arnett move on came out. So, yeah, as far as official word, nobody still really knows. And I think that's a good thing. I'll be honest with you, Jimmy. You've seen some times in the past where, it'd be a little loose. Things would start getting a little loose where ADs are letting an AD that's doing a coaching search he'd talk to somebody, or he maybe talked to too many people or trust too many people, and information just started flying all over the place, going crazy. To Zach Selman's credit, this has been mouse quiet. I mean, not a peep since he made the announcement, which is probably a good thing. So that's the only update I have. Hey, I appreciate the phone call as always. Thank you. Call me anytime. Yeah, and I saw that JS290, a little headline out there today that Partridge got fired by Michigan. Defense coordinator. Sign stealing deal, they fired him. So they got a lot going on at Michigan. I mean, that's no little thing that Harbaugh is suspended for 3 games. He can coach during the week, so he's just missing 3 ball games. I mean, that sort of is what it is. I'll be honest with you. It's got to have some effect, but it's not some huge. It'd be a much bigger effect if he couldn't coach during the week, right? I mean, that's where all the work's put in and all the preparation's put in during the week. And with any team, and any coach will tell you this, there's an element of the hay being in the barn. By the time you show up to the stadium on Saturday, you've either prepared to win that game at that point or you haven't. You either can or you can't, by that point. When you start talking about add on top of that defensive coordinator, roles start changing, the voice in your ear starts changing when you're on the sideline and moving people, up and down, booth to sideline. That can have a little bit more of an effect, I think. Earlier we were talking about Georgia and some of these other teams, Alabama's roster, Georgia's roster, and how it doesn't really compare to a lot of these other, even SEC teams. Will says he thinks Georgia is in a league of its own this year. He says, then Ohio State, Michigan. Then after that, Florida State, Texas, Alabama, Oregon, Washington, and Oklahoma. After that, he says he thinks it levels off. And then he went on to say, but I think any of those teams that I mentioned by name would make for an interesting playoff game. Gives me hope that the expanded playoff will give us more interesting games and not just blowouts. Yeah, I'm hopeful for that too, Will. I'm hopeful for that too. And don't ever forget this, Will. And I know you haven't, but just don't ever forget it. If everything was positive, if everything was hunky-dory, if everything was just roses and beautiful and they're just rolling in the success and the trends are all perfect, they never would have expanded the playoff. Those kind of people, they don't go out here and change your playoff format completely from the 14 thing to a 12-team deal and all this other stuff, they don't go make that kind of change without having a real good reason to do it, or having something that is very much motivating them to do it. I mean, remember that. And this is what we're talking about. I said it to you. I was not overblowing it, because you have to look at details, right? In any business, in any realm, the details are really important. And for years now, you've had a trend of the same thing every year, and it was this: a steady, not precipitous, steep, but a steady sloping off decline in the viewership of your championship games, while at the same time there's a steady decline of in-stadium attendance across the regular season in college football. You can't have both of those at the same time. So they preach a good message and put out a good, PR statement from time to time in interviews and different things, but they had to change it. And what you said is very, very true. And money, but that's why. I mean, money. You can't lose money. You can't put yourself in a position not to, when you could make it. And what they're going to do is expand that thing, hope for better games. There'll be more eyeballs on those others, because people are going to know that when you get, by the time, if we continue the way you are with the roster building, you're still going to get championship games where you're going to have Georgia and TCU. You're still going to get that. But the first and second round of those playoffs could be more interesting. And they had to give people a reason to watch some of that other stuff. And if they know they're going to keep getting Georgia and TCU in these title games, they know that's going to happen. And it's not going to look good when you do it. And so they had to change it up. We got to go quick here. Andre on line 1. Andre, I got about a minute. Thanks for calling. What's up?
All right. I'm going to give it to you real quick. Let's cut out the coaching search for Mississippi State and go ahead and hire Bobby Petrino. That's the guy we need.
Okay.
Hey, look, I don't care about baggage. We got baggage with the basketball coach, so it really don't matter.
Okay.
Hire the best man for the job. Arkansas haven't been the same since Petrino left. So I'm going with my vote for Bobby Petrino. I want to give a shout out to Colleen right quick. They play East Mississippi for the championship tomorrow. So if you ain't doing nothing, get on down there and watch that, because East Mississippi trying to go back to back. So that should be a good game.
Cool.
And I want to give it out. Real quick to the 49ers, man. I got the San Francisco 49ers winning the Super Bowl. I'm going to Vegas, so hey, that's my minute. You need to get on the bandwagon, Matt. The 49ers will win the championship this year. I'm out.
He's out. He wants Petrino. Shout out Colin and the 49ers. Stick around.
You okay, sir? I'm Jerry.
I was born and raised in Greenville. I've always called Greenville home. This is where I, was raised, went to high school, graduated high school, worked all my life here leading up to going to college. So even when I moved from Greenville, I always told people, they asked me where you're from, I always said I'm from Greenville. I have mother, father, brother, niece, aunt, all live here in Greenville. So this is home. This is where I, live, and I've just always called it home. Small town, I feel like I could walk in any place tomorrow and know 2 to 3 people in there. It's small town. Someone's on the side of the road broken down. Hey, you need a boost, flat tire, you need help changing it. That's just kind of, what I love about this area, the blues and the food and everything that comes along with the Mississippi Delta that I love. I tell people all the time, my business cards have my cell phone number on them for a reason. Insurance doesn't happen from 8 to 5. When you need me, it's going to be after 5. It hardly ever happens where you have a wreck, get pulled over, need an insurance card, wind blows, shingles off your roof. All these things happen, and it's typically after 5. And so the ability for someone to call me, get in contact with me, text me, ask me a question, and that's what it's about to me, is helping the people that we serve, is taking care of people, and them knowing that they can count on me whenever they need me. I am Brian Street with Farm Bureau Insurance in Washington County, and we are your home team.
Y'all have heard me talk about Murray West and MurrayWest.com. They made the hat that I'm wearing. Got the Natchez Trace logo on it. I've told you a little bit about what they are. Contract embroidery company here in Mississippi. Started back in 1996, family owned. They do a phenomenal job, and I got to go visit their place up in New Albany. Let me show you a little bit about it. I say they do quality stuff. They really do. And so custom apparel, team stuff, really and truly, just about every high school in the state is sending their embroidered, team gear, jackets, shirts, hats, stuff. Baseball teams, football teams, they're sending it to the folks at Murray West in New Albany. You go to their website, MurrayWest.com, you go to the bottom, you can kind of see some of the Prairie Wildlife, Ole Miss Athletics, Gentile, others that they work with. Can't recommend them enough. If you need your logo printed, embroidered, sewn on to anything, custom apparel and other stuff, make sure you go there. Murray West, you can find them online. MurrayWest.com. That's MURRY West.
All right, look, see, this is what I'm talking about here. This is what I'm talking about. This time of year, we're in the rivalry season, right? Wouldn't y'all agree that? That's where we are. For goodness sake, next week's the battle for the golden egg. That's what Jack Crystal called it. We've shortened it to Egg Bowl. Right? Okay, rivalry time of year, Iron Bowl, Alabama, Auburn, that's next week. This week, we've got Brandon hosting Pearl tonight. And this is what I'm talking about. Possum in a Gum Bush on that's the name, trust me, that's just the name, on the Country Pleasing text line. Text the show and says, Matt, I've not heard it on the radio yet, but it must be said, ... Eat dirt, Brandon, eat dirt. That's what they say. Eat dirt, Brandon. So I think it is an appropriate time, as we finish the week the right way, like we like to do on Fridays when we have the opportunity and schedules allow, finish the week the right way, putting our nose in the Bible, digging into Scripture to see what God says about running our mouth. How you feel about that? Terry Fant, my friend, the pastor at Hickory Ridge Baptist Church in Florence, Mississippi, on your radio right now on the Divinity Equipment phone line. Hey, Terry, how's that for a lead in?
That was excellent.
Rivalry
that
season.
Was excellent.
Well, and you've got the folks in Florence got a big game tonight too, don't they? Hosting a big ball game.
Yeah, no doubt. Hopefully we can take on advance.
Yep. Yeah, well, they surely have been playing well recently, for sure. Okay, so Terry, let's look at some scripture, and you can help us to kind of flip through it and parse it out. The things that we say, words, and I guess it could be written too, but primarily things that we say. The Bible has a lot to say about words and the use of words and the tongue and how powerful it can be. Before we jump into a scripture, what's a good starting point from your perspective, from a biblical perspective, regarding what words and things we say can do?
Well, I think biblically we think about, the scripture says that, in the tongue of the power of life and death. And then in James, he talks about the tongue being such a small instrument, and yet it can, like a bit in a horse's mouth, it can control such a large animal. The tongue can have such large impact, and it can be positive or negative, right?
Right. Positive or negative, I guess. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it can be wielded, either way. If you look at James 3, 4, and 5, that's what you just referenced. The tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boast. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. I mean, okay. But you said positive and negative. Okay, so, our words can be positive. All right, and I'm going to read a verse here that you shared with me, Terry, and then you take it from here. Hebrews 3:13 in the New King James says, "But exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin." So when it says, "But exhort one another daily," what's it talking about?
That word for exhortation there, Matt, speaks of challenging each other. Not so it would be, me and you maybe in a relationship where we know each other, and we built a relationship, and we lean on the Word of God to help each other be the best version of ourselves as we can be. And so it's not like just have a nice day, but instead it's, hey, in the middle of a storm, hey, remember, he says he's our peace. And so it's challenging each other with our words. I said this way, calling each other up to a holy life instead of beating each other down. Some people wrap it up and they think they're being positive by taking the scripture and just hammering people. That's not what he speaks of there in Hebrews 3:13. Instead, it's to take our mouth and use the word of God to call each other up, to encourage each other, fan the flame, if you will.
Right.
And notice at the end of that verse, he says, "Lest any of you be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin." That means, as your brother, Matt, if I don't exhort you and you don't exhort me, and one of us falls to the deceitfulness of sin, we have some fault in the matter because we didn't take our words and use them to exhort each other, to call each other out of that into something higher.
Wow. So exhortation, challenging or calling our brothers and sisters up to a holy life. I love the way that you worded that. Okay, and then you mentioned, okay, it can be for encouraging each other. So the encouragement part of it, all right? And I'm going to read a verse that you shared, Proverbs chapter 16, verse 24. "Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the bones." What do you make of that?
Think about all the different aspects of that, Matt. Pleasant words are like a honeycomb. The honeycomb is sweet, but also it has great nutritional properties. It's just good for you. And what he's saying, the Proverbs wisdom writer is telling us, is that when you and I can use words in such a way to nourish each other and to add, the sweet part of flavor is for pleasure. Sweetness doesn't give you more nutrients necessarily. So he speaks here of the nutrients plus also the pleasantness.
Yeah.
And think about this. When you're around somebody who's using pleasant words, who's encouraging, who may, I like to start by telling people, "Man, how you feeling today? You look good." I love to say that to people because you can watch them. They'll stand up straighter and a smile will come on their face. And it's like you gave them a little bit of honeycomb, a little nourishment,
Sure, right.
A little pleasantness. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the encouragement factor and what it can manifest in a person. Like you said, they'll stand up straight and smile. All right, and Terry, in Proverbs 15:1, "A soft answer turns away wrath." I couldn't help but think, like, if I've ever done something a little wrong or whatever, and Annabeth will ask me and like call me to the carpet on it or something, if I say to her, "Hey, I'm sorry. I love you. I'm sorry," she'll react one way. But if I say to her, "What's wrong with you?" It's a whole different kind of conversation from then on. So just practically, that is it's so obvious, isn't it? A soft answer turns away wrath.
Yes. Pastoring, and this is going to probably surprise you, but pastoring, people sometimes get mad at you, and they're mad at you sometimes for no reason other than they're hurting. Hurt people, they come across sometimes angry and lash out. And I've learned the same thing sometimes the hard way. If you lash out back and you feel like you deserve it, well, there's not peace made there.
Right.
in those times. But the times when we yield to the Holy Spirit and ask Him what He'd have us to say back before we speak, man, I've learned that when I do that, I don't always do it, but when I do that, man, He just makes peace. I believe it's what Jesus talked about when He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers."
Yep.
One way we can make peace is to have a soft answer.
Absolutely. Terry Fant on your radio right now. He's the pastor at Hickory Ridge Baptist Church in Florence. Bible questions to end up on a Friday. And so, Terry, this Proverbs 15, verse 1, it's like a first part, comma, a second part. It's the perfect dichotomy of how words can be positive and negative. Proverbs 15 says, a soft answer turns away wrath. And then it says, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And so take me down that path, because it's saying that words can have that opposite effect if we're not careful, which you just touched on.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about times in your life when someone has said something to you, maybe offensive or angry, what have you, and you retaliate with your words. You respond back harshly. Well, they don't get more calm. They don't say, well, thank you for that, and have peace in their heart or in your relationship. No, that word stirs up means it's like stirring the pot, if you will. It increases it. It unsettles the peace. It causes that anger to grow. Just recently, I had somebody reach out to me in a situation in our family, and they were telling me they don't know us really, but they were, how people sometimes give you advice. They were giving me advice on what we ought to do, but they don't really know anything on the situation. I saw it on Facebook Messenger about 11 o'clock that night, and I read it. Boy, I was so hot. You get aggravated. I'm thinking, man, these people don't know anything about us and what have you. And I said, I'm not going to answer now. I'm going to pray and go to sleep. And I prayed and went to sleep. Got up the next morning, and the Lord said, just thank them for their perspective. So I just I sent a little message. I didn't want to do it, Matt, but I texted back, said, thank you for your perspective. We're praying that the Lord's will be done. And what would have been an all-out text war, turned into just a simple thank you back to me.
Wow.
And so, He's true. His word is true. I don't always practice it, but it is absolutely true. The soft answer will bring peace, but that harsh answer, if you retaliate back, and a lot of times you feel like you deserve it, it never gets better.
That's right.
It never gets better.
That's right. Hey, and with just a little time left, I'm going to read some other verses that you sent to me here. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. Philippians 2:14, do all things without complaining and disputing. And then Luke 6:45, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil. For out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaks. Terry, got about 25-30 seconds left. How do we sum it up?
Well, as Christians, we're reminded in Ephesians 4:29, we're commanded. It's not an option. It says no corrupt words. So we have to ask ourselves, is what I'm saying going to corrupt and cause damage, or is it going to edify and build up? And then what comes out of my mouth, he said in Luke 6:45, exposes what's really in abundance in my heart. So really, we don't need to say, Lord, clean my mouth up. We need to say, Lord, clean my heart up.
Wow. Brother, that is the truth, and it is powerful. Thank you. Talk to you soon, Terry.
Yes, sir. The Lord bless you. See you soon.
You too.
Jerry, was that a bird?
Nope.